Welcome to Own the Season podcast. We will talk to industry insiders along with outdoor enthusiasts to help you own your season. Now let's join hosts Art and Michelle Helen with Brad Jones. Own the Season podcast is brought to you by The Hunter's Vault. Cool, protect, and age your harvest with great results. Full size, but yet portable. The Hunter's Vault. Find out more at thehuntersvault.com.
Hello and welcome to Own the Season podcast. I'm Michelle Helen with Art Helen and Brad Jones, and our guest today is Roger Raglin. Hi, Roger.
How's it going?
We're doing good. You behaving down there in Oklahoma today?
Trying to. Just got a hot muggy day here, and with more coming. But that's okay. It's kind of that time of year here.
Yeah, I think it's that kind of time of year pretty much everywhere. But the good time of year is we've got bucks growing antlers and, elk growing antlers, and it's, fawns starting to grow. So it's getting that time of year where we get to start looking forward to fall.
Yeah, they're getting the deer are getting their, here at least, probably up there too. Their racks are, getting out, 8-10 inches and starting to sprout points a little bit. They're just getting a good on them.
So, yeah, go ahead, Brad.
No, it's just getting us all anxious for the hunting season is all it's doing.
Right. So, I was, when I was younger, not to age you, Roger, or age me, watching you on, VHS, wasn't even DVDs and stuff back in the day. You were like one of the first, to be able to do this, and really watching you was, brought a lot of fun to the hunt and a lot of different things, and kind of walk us through how you even got into this industry and stuff, because I know that you were born I believe in Oregon, but I'm not sure how long you lived in Oregon and then headed down to Oklahoma. So how did you really get started and fall in love with this?
Yeah, I grew up here in Oklahoma. My parents were from Oklahoma, and at an early age I moved from Oregon back to Oklahoma. So I grew up, I say I was lucky. I grew up, both sides of my family, the Raglins, and my mom was a Yoakum. Virtually everyone liked to hunt and fish. I grew up in families that liked to hunt and fish. And I just kind of thought everybody was that way. And until I got into junior high schools, when it kind of shifted, when all this kind of came together, and I was shocked that, dove season's rolling around, and boy, I was all excited, and there was me and one other guy in my class was going to go dove hunting, and everybody looked at me like I was crazy. So, but I did. I grew up hunting and just eat up. But I went to college and I went to college forever. I don't know why. I was thinking about that today. My career. I hate to use the word career, but I was kind of like a career student. I went to 4 different schools and got 4 different college degrees, a couple of master's degrees. My last one was from Duke University, and so I was 27 years old when I finally got out of college, and still didn't know what to do. And I took some time off and I started painting apartments in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They called me the smartest painter in Tulsa, And I go into the Sherwin-Williams store. Well, I went in there one time, and of course the guy goes, "Hey, there's the smartest painter in Tulsa." And I'm standing next to a guy that was covered in paint. He'd been spraying. He goes, "Why do they call you the smartest painter in Tulsa?" I said, "Well, I have 4 college degrees, 2 master's degrees. I have a master's degree from Duke University." And he looked at me and said, "I have a PhD from Baylor." I said, "Well, I'm the second smartest painter in Tulsa." but I didn't really think much about it. I guess in my heart, I just kind of thought, well, if this is what I'm going to end up doing, I was happy with it. I never even painting as a job. I enjoyed it, believe it or not. I enjoyed going in, and when you go in, a place looks like terrible, and when you walk out, man, it looks brand new. What a coat of paint will do. But in that period, I met my wife, and after a long drug out dating thing, you blink your eyes, and we were married, and she had 2 little boys when I married her. Then we had 2 little girls. I had a house full of kids pretty early, and I read an article that was written by Craig Boddington in 1985 in Peterson's Hunting Magazine, and called the Grand Slam of Deer, and he did a single season Grand Slam of Deer, and I thought, man, wouldn't that be neat to do that? It just kind of put that bug. I had never been on a guided hunt in my life. And to be honest with you, my wife and I, we kind of lived, we were just getting started. We lived in a little old shack there in Broken Arrow. Lived behind the McDonald's on Hickory Street in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. And rented a little old house. And I thought, man, I'm going to try to do a single season Grand Slam of deer and try to figure out on a very limited budget how to do that. Of course, the whitetail's the easy part. And I'll go to Colorado and do a do-it-yourself thing, but the hardest one was the Coues deer and the blacktail deer. And I booked a Coues deer hunt with Dwayne Adams in Arizona, and my blacktail hunt, something happened, it fell through, and I called Dwayne in December, and I said, I'm not going to be able to make that Coues deer hunt. It was $1,500 for that hunt, and I'd give him a deposit. He goes, well, we'll just roll it over till next year. I said, okay. And Dwayne Adams said something, and I know this sounds nuts. This is just, it's too far of a far-fetched story for it to be a lie. You couldn't make something like this up. But Dwayne Adams said, next year you ought to film your hunts. And I said, what? He goes, you ought to make a hunting video on the and film your hunts. He goes, and he said everybody else is doing it, and I did not know that there was such thing as a hunting video. I didn't know it, and my wife and I did not own a VCR. We didn't even own a VCR. But up the street, at the end of the street was there at Hickory Street. There in a little old shopping center was a Blockbuster video store, and I jumped in my truck and drove down there, and I walked in. I said, "You got any hunting videos?" He goes, "Yeah, we got a few." I said, "I want to rent a couple of them." He goes, "Which ones?" I said, "I don't care. Pick 2 of them." I said, "You rent VCRs?" He goes, "Yeah, we'll rent you a VCR." I said, well, I'm gonna have to rent a VCR. And I rented a VCR and 2 hunting videos, went home, hooked it up to my TV, and I sit and watched those 2 hunting videos, and I thought, man, I don't know anything about this, but I think I could do that. I think I could make the hunting video. And my wife came in. She was a hairstylist at the time, and she was doing the dishes. We had a great dishwasher. It was called Darlene. And she was standing in there doing the dishes, and I walked up, I said, I'm thinking about making a hunting video next year. And she said, that'd be nice. I'm not going to say I'm going to go to the store and get a loaf of bread. Okay, that'd be nice, And that started the bug, and I was very fortunate that next year I landed a couple of outside painting apartment complexes. I landed 2 pretty good-sized jobs that required me to hire some helpers and stuff. And I actually made some money, made a little bit of money. And I hired Jimmy Houston Productions on a daily rate. And I'm not even going to tell you how much I paid for a daily rate. Now you got to keep. I ain't had any money, to be honest with you. Just had a little bit of I had a couple of buddies. Oh, we're going to give you some, and we're going to help you support and that for a piece of the action. And that's how it all started. I just took on, booked a bunch of hunts, and had Jimmy Houston Production, had a sound man and an audio man, and we just headed out across the country. And boy, I started running out of money in a hurry between me and you. But we were having I think I had 16 or 17 first day kills. I mean, we were fortunate. We just got, stars lined up, and I was having success shooting, having the time of my life. I'd never been on, you got to remember, I'd never even been on a guided hunt, so I'm going to go on all these Montana and Texas for the first time, and I'm getting, all this is brand new to me, so it was exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And right before Christmas, I just run out of money, if you don't know the truth. And I called my dad, and I had to do my Coos deer hunt. And the whole purpose of doing this was take a video called The Grand Slam of Deer. And I know I'm going a long way down the barn, but I called my dad, and I said, I need to talk to you. This is the 23rd of December. And he drove up. I was painting apartments there at the Stone Creek Apartments on Garnett and 11th in Tulsa. I said, I need to borrow $10,000. That's quite a bit of money back in 1987. Yeah. That's quite a bit of money now, if you want to think about it. And
absolutely.
And he said, well, what for? I said, well, I'm just out of money. I said, I don't even have the money for my truck payment and rent. And I said, but I owe Jimmy Productions more than that even. I said, but I got to go on this Coos deer hunt in Arizona, or I'm going to be able to do this. And he wrote me a check, and I'm telling you, I paid him back too. But he wrote me a check for $10,000, and I took half of it, went up to Jimmy Houston Productions. I never dealt with Jimmy Houston. I dealt with someone, the guy that ran the office there. And I gave him that $5,000. I think I owe them over $10,000 still. And I gave him $5,000, and he had all my masters piled up over there against the wall, and he took it. I remember he flipped it back at me. He goes, well, that doesn't even cover what you owe me now. And I caught it. I caught it in the air, and I'll never forget this. Kind of a defining moment. I held it up, and I shook it at him. And I said, you take this $5,000 and put it down towards what I owe you. Or I'm going to walk out of here with this $5,000. Never see me again. And all them masters over there laying up against the wall, you try to pick something out of them and get your money back. And he took the money, and we went on my Coos deer hunt the day after Christmas, and I killed the Coos, but man, it's the closest thing for a whitetail hunt. It's the closest thing to being on a sheep hunt you'll ever be. It's very difficult physical hunt, but I killed a pretty nice Coos the first morning. And then I just forgot about it. I literally forgot about it. Man, I had to go back to work. I had 2 babies in diapers, and I had a wife that was pretty upset about the whole thing. I'd spent all of our money, and it was in the summer. It was in August. My mom and dad came up to play, see the two grand. I'm an only child, so those were the little girls were their only 2 grandkids, and my dad was in the other room playing with the girls, and my mom said, whatever happened to all that filming you did the last year? And I said, well, I've run out of money, and they got all my masters, and she said, well, what do you, I said, well, I need a bunch of money to pay off them, then have the editing. And I said, she goes, well, how much do you think you might need? And I said, I don't know, $12,000-$15,000 probably. And my mother pulled a wad of $100 bills out of her billfold, out of her purse, $17,000 in $100 bills, and she slipped it over to me. And that's her money, but she said, "Now don't tell your dad I give you this." She said, "But go make that video and see if you can make something out of that." And I went up to the next day, went up to Houston Productions and paid them off. paid them off and said, I've got the money for editing. Here's 50% of what, up front. And the largest hunting video producer, a lot of people don't realize this, back in the video days, the VHS video days, the market was for VHS, was the rental market. It wasn't the sell-through market. It was the rental market. At that time, in the late 80s, there were 12,000 outlets. And, you had your big boxes like Blockbuster, but there were 12. There's a Mom and Paul kettle store on every corner in every little town across America that rented hunting videos. And the largest distributor in the nation was DMI in Oklahoma City. If you weren't doing business with DMI, you weren't in business in those days. And I took that video over to Sheen Ray, the president of DMI, and he looked at it and said, "Well," he goes, I think I can sell it." He goes, "Order me 1,000 of them, and we'll start from there." I thought, "Oh my goodness, 1,000!" And so that got my foot in the door, and it kind of went from there. It was kind of I never ever dreamed of it being. I have to tell this part. I never even dreamed of it being a business, and I ended up making two new videos out of all that stuff we shot: Grand Slam a Deer and one I come up with called Quest for a Boone and Crockett. They're good, to be honest with you. The Grand Slam a Deer was pretty good, and Sheen called me at the end of the next summer. He said, "Come on." He's real rough and gruff. He said, "Come over here, I want to talk to you." And I went over there, and he said, "People like watching you, and we've sold a bunch of them." Now, I wasn't anywhere near out of the hole, trust me. He said, "I want you to make me some more hunting videos." And I said, "Are you?" "No." I told him, "No, no way. You forget it." I said, "I'll probably never get my money back as it is." And he said, "No." He goes, "I'll tell you what." He goes, "If you let me pick the end," he goes, "I'll front you the money. I'll front you the money, film, and make me some more hunting videos." He goes, "I think you can do this, and we're getting too many requests for more of your stuff." And a guy from Anchorage, Alaska, named Wade Nolan and I hit the road. He flew back and forth from Anchorage. He'd come down for a few weeks and fly home for a few days. And we hit the road and once again got fortunate on several different deals. And that, from the footage from that fall, I made a hunting video called, and I give it a little title, "Whitetails East of the Mississippi." But the name of it was "Plenty of Big Bucks to Spare" was the name of it. It had this incredible fight scene between a white and a brown deer that we actually filmed in a game preserve. And that thing took off that video took off like a rocket. And it became the number one selling whitetail hunting, the number one hunting video in the nation that year, that fall. And that put me on the map and allowed me to. I told my wife, I said, I think I'm going to be in the hunting video business. She said, "How's that?" I said, I'm making more money now than if I was painting apartments. I said, if I concentrated and tried, to turn it into a business, I said, I think that we can do okay. And that's what we did, And the only problem is it just didn't last long enough. The hunting video business only was good about 5 or 6 years. And then when television came along and with the internet and all that, it died in a hurry. But boy, those 5 or 6, 7 years there in the late 80s and the early 90s, my BKS production company, we were kind of the top dog in the industry there for a little while, and it was good. But then I'm up to my ears in it, and I got to figure out how to, I've given up all my contract painting stuff. So I had to stay in the business, figure out how to make a living in the hunting business. But I didn't initially get started with the thought that I'm going to get in the hunting business and do this for a living. That was the farthest thing from my mind.
When did sponsorships come into play, Roger? When did you start getting sponsors?
Well, sponsors, I only had. That's a great question, actually. You know, in the hunting video days, we really didn't have a sponsor. Was somebody that give you some camo or give you a gun or give you. They didn't give you money. They just give you product. You know, the only company that gave me money was Modern Game Calls out of Buckeye, Arizona. I still work with the Kane family because they private label my hands-free calls for me. But they actually gave me some sponsorship money. And then I deal with a guy named Bob Heist, who came up with the Tree Lounge. Do you remember the old Tree Lounge?
I do.
Yep.
Yeah, and Bob actually gave me some money too, but those were the only two sponsors that I had. I really didn't. I made my money off selling, you know, to DMI in the rental market. That's how I made my money, and it wasn't until I tried to bleed that as long as I could, but by the time 2000 hit. Boy, the video business was virtually dead. You know, of course, we switched from VHS to DVD by then, but it was just a struggle. And everybody making hunt videos, the juries and Primos and Realtree or whoever, they had already moved to television, and I had to make the move to television, and that's when it all changed, because television, 100% sponsorship money, you know, and we're talking dollars and cents. You know, you had to have sponsors to have a television show, and that was the video days versus television days. That really is a horse and a cow. They're two different animals, and but anyway, it's been. This is my 39th year in the business, so I've been pretty fortunate. I've done television now, 23 or 24 years. Got to do the hunt video thing for a number of years and been on television. Of course, now we have, you know, the new beast on the block is the social media stuff, and that's its own animal, so to speak, you know. It's a necessary evil, I guess, but it's... Yeah. I like the video. I like the whole VHS hunting video. If you know the best, cause all I had to do was make a hunting video and turn it in, and then I didn't have to do nothing the rest of the year.
Right. Now it's a bunch of extra work, right?
It's every day. Every single day I have to post on social media.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
things were a lot simpler in a lot of ways, not just about the hunting business or TV, you know, show business, but a lot of things were simpler back then, weren't they?
Oh yeah, and people don't, you know, people don't realize how good the hunting is now versus, you know, when I got started in this business 40 years ago, I kind of got lucky in a sense that I fell in with a group of about 7 or 8 different sportsmen from around the country, die-hard deer hunters that were not in the business. They were businessmen that liked to deer hunt. And I fell into, they accepted me into their little niche. And the thing that we thrived on doing was going to brand new places that people just didn't even know whitetails existed. And we can start, I can call some of these places now, you know, even in the Milk River area of Montana, you know, I remember when that was brand new virgin country. No one went up there to hunt whitetails. Northern Texas, you know, no one ever, you know, but we went to these places, and we were some of the first ones to ever hunt deer there. The Inner Lakes area of Manitoba. I mean, it just goes on and on. I start calling these places that we traveled to and went that no one had ever been there before to hunt deer because no one even knew about them. And that was an exciting part of it for me, getting to be a part of that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, the deer hunting is so much better now, virtually everywhere, than it was back, 35, 40 years ago. There weren't near as many deer, and the hunting wasn't near. Once again, 140-inch deer, 50-inch deer, that was a really big whitetail deer. And there were bigger deer being killed, but boy, if you could shoot a 140-inch buck, that was, and now to me personally, it's still that's a big buck, but now guys are, kind of getting spoiled a little bit. They kind of thumb their nose at a 140-inch deer, and I want the 160 and 180, all that stuff, and I'm sitting about 30 feet from where I'm talking to a trophy room that is loaded. The walls are loaded with whitetail deer, and most of them are 130 to 150 inches.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this fall when I go hunting, that's what I'll be shooting once again. I ain't holding out waiting on that pie in the sky 180. Some of them, but 130, 40, nice, 4, 5, 6-year-old deer that's 130 to 150. Typically, I shoot them the first time, first day of my hunt. I don't have to wait for that 180 or 190 because they're going to be kind of few and far in between still.
If it's big enough to make you say Jiminy Christmas, it's big enough, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. and even to me, and I've shot, and I still occasionally, make a mistake, and mistake's not the right word, but I'll shoot a deer that's younger than what I thought he would be, a 3-year-old or something. Oh, I thought he was older, but boy, when I get a chance to shoot a big old 7, 8-year-old buck, that you can just tell by looking at him, he's an old, big, giant-bodied. I know nobody hardly believes this, but I don't really care what his if he's 120. One of the great trophies I ever killed in my life was in Saskatchewan about a dozen years ago. And it's the biggest bodied buck I'd ever killed. He field dressed 287, 288. And he would, when he stepped out, he just looked like a tank. And I told my son, I said, I'm going to shoot this deer. And he said, boy, he's got a big body. He said, yeah, I didn't even hesitate. And I knocked him down. He's a 125-inch deer. But he was a giant bodied. And when the guy come over to pick us up, he said, oh, I know this deer. He goes, he's been that size for 4 years. He's at least a 9-year-old deer. But again, he's been 125 inches for 4 years. He's a big, mature deer. And I was just as excited. If he'd have been 180, I wouldn't have been excited. He was just a giant-bodied deer. And I just, when I get a chance to shoot a great, big, old, mature buck, yeah, the bigger the rack, the better. But they don't have to have a big rack for me to be excited when it's a great, big, 300-pound toad. I love shooting those deer. I really do.
They're big deer. That's a lot of fun. But, one of the things that impresses me most with you, Roger, is, we worked with, Michelle and I worked with Ralph and Vicky Ciancerullo for years. And, Ralph's a good friend. And one thing he always said to me was, everyone in this industry has a shelf life. He says, no matter how you look at it, they have a shelf life. And I believe that there's a handful of you guys out there that actually have proved that wrong, that you have overcome and adapted, over all these years. And so that shelf life has never gone away. There's still people, even young people that, say, man, I want to watch Roger. He's exciting. He's fun to watch. And it doesn't matter. That shelf life hasn't gone away. And that's impressive to me.
Well, I appreciate that. I do. I appreciate that. I'd like to think you're right. Sometimes I wonder about that, especially when I, look in the mirror and I go, well, who's this old guy I'm looking at, you know? But I do enjoy. I enjoy what I do, and I still. Now the shoot seasons now are a little bit tougher than what they used to be. Now that I'm, almost 72 years old, but I like the grind of it, and I still like going out and getting after them, and it's still it's still absolutely exciting to me. I still prefer to hunt. And I've been lucky to go to Africa and Australia. I've gone a lot of places and shot a bunch of different critters, But I just still, the whitetail is still number one on my list. And I still love chasing those things. And I could just sit and watch them, I could sit in the blind and just watch them, just how they interact with one another, I've been so fortunate. The Lord has blessed me so much that I have gotten to do 40 years of my life. I've gotten to do really what I would do for nothing, but I've been able to make a living, and get paid for doing something that's just kind of a dream come true. But the adapting part is. It keeps changing pretty fast. You guys already know this. It's every week this thing is changing, and I'm having trouble kind of pedaling uphill fast, trying to stay in tune with all this social media stuff that's taking place. I didn't even have a TikTok account till last fall, and now I still don't want one, but I got a TikTok account. Lord help us, And I'm not going on there dancing with music in my underwear, trust me. So.
Well, it does seem that some degree of, I don't want to say nudity, but there's certainly some skimpily clad folks out there on the social media that do garner a lot of attention, but we also choose not to go that route with our own stuff.
There's always going to be a certain of that, and I don't take this wrong, but you can't hardly even these young gals that are out here take advantage of that. I get it. They're making $1 off of their looks, for lack of a better word. And now that I'm 72, I know for sure, I married a beautiful woman, but she's 69 now, and Darlene don't look like she did when she was 23 when I met her. Your looks are eventually going to poop out on you, so you better make it while you can.
Yeah.
Right.
See, and here, Roger, I thought you lost all this weight so that that's what you're going to start doing now. So,
Yeah, well, no, that was the smartest thing I've ever done, was dropping all that weight. That was a huge difference to me in my life. Getting it off of me allowed me to just, go up and down. I mean, I don't do it, but I'll guarantee you, I could climb a tree, climb up in a tree now, and I can do a lot. I can still do a lot of things at 72 years old that I wouldn't have been able to if I was 80 pounds heavier. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that.
Well, I was going to ask a question kind of similar to what Art was, talking about, in that, you've certainly continued to be successful and really relevant, throughout all these years, like you said, 40 years later, is there anything you can attribute that to? Like, one thing that stands out to me just listening to you talk today, Roger, is your enthusiasm and your enjoyment of what you're doing and excitement, and that, it's not acting, it's real. And I think people can definitely feel that when they watch you. Anything else? Would you agree with that? And is there anything else that you can attribute your continued, success to, or anything in particular that you've adapted?
Well, I do think that people excitement and enthusiasm is contagious, and I really genuinely, that really is who I am. I mean, I thoroughly enjoy when I'm out there hunting and that whole experience, and I get a chance to knock down a really good buck. You know, man, that. Cause I went, I'm telling you, I went years before I ever got my first decent buck. I went hard. Even I myself, I scratch my head sometimes thinking about so the trips and the miles I drove and the hours that I put in trying to shoot a deer. You know, now granted, 40 years ago, 45 years ago, there weren't near as many deer here in Oklahoma. You know, success rates were less than 10% when I grew up here in Oklahoma. No doe tags, just one buck. You're allowed to kill a buck, and man, it was hard. It was hard to find a deer to shoot, and I went hard at it, and year after year with unfilled tags. So I know what it's like to go and not be successful. And when I get an opportunity now, and let's face it, I don't make any bones about it, because I've got a really active shoot season coming up. Knock on wood, I'm knocking on wood as I'm talking to you. I really, on paper, buddy, it looks good. I think we've got a pretty good year lined up ahead of us. I'm trying to go to the best places I can. I'm trying to hunt the very best properties, go to the very best places. So I'm not busting my chops like I used to, going out there hunting public land, and but I had to. Let me tell you, I'd do it again if I had to do that, but I don't have to do that now. And I've had a lot of success, but I am going to, I'm hunting the very best places that I can possibly go to, and trying to pack as much experience as I can in my life. I have a dear friend, Tom Miranda is a dear friend of mine, and Tom and I talk often. And Tom got a saying. He says, when you die, you're dead for an awful long time. and I thought that makes sense. I thought that's Tom's saying, but I'll take that. I'm going to steal that from Tom. When you're dead, you're dead for a long time. And so try to pack as much in as you can and enjoy the experience. And if you enjoy hunting, try to bleed and get the most out of it that you possibly can. And I think I've been able to do that over the last 4 decades, and hopefully get to do it a little bit longer. I still have some other plans and goals here in the next few years, but I'm smart enough to realize that I got a whole lot more of the roadmap behind me than I do in front of me. But I'd like to think I have a few more good years ahead of me, and looking forward to. Well, I'll give you a great example. I'm going to Alabama. I've been fortunate to hunt whitetails in 34 different U.S. states, and that's just almost mind-boggling when you think about it. But I have never hunted whitetails in Alabama, and I'm going the first week in January this year. And I don't want to make anybody mad, but I'm going down there, and I'm going to go on a dog hunt in Alabama because I've never done that, and I'm looking forward to that experience.
Yep.
I'm going down there with the number one guy in the state that he's head of that. And he said, Roger, he goes, if you could come down here and do, he said, you'd have a perspective of what dog hunting really is and why we do it and how we do it. And I'm looking forward to doing that, and I know I don't care if it's a doe. I'll be tickled to death just because we're going to shoot shotguns with buckshot. If I could just kill a doe, I'll be tickled to death. But I want to get in there and enjoy that experience, and because I've never gotten to do anything like that.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So you'll check Alabama off the list. How many other U.S. states have whitetails that you haven't been to yet?
Well, that's a good question. The Northeast primarily. I mean, all those little states up there, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Delaware, New Hampshire, Vermont, that little Rhode Island, that's a big chunk of them right up there.
Sure.
And I'll probably never go up there, to be honest with you. I'll probably never go up there and do that. But Virginia, I had a hunt. I was going to go hunt with a guy, just a friend of a friend in Virginia. I have never hunted in Virginia after Christmas, but I have such a busy schedule. I'm going to put that off till next year. But I'll go to Virginia next year, and that is one of the Virginia and then Florida. I haven't been to Florida for deer, whitetails, but you take away that upper northeast, and those are about the only two states left that I haven't had a chance to go to. But you never know. I mean, I might, if I could take the whole month of November off, I could go up there and hit Connecticut and Rhode Island, and it takes some planning, and then I'd have to have some help. I might be able to hit 3 or 4 of those states there, in just in a few weeks. But I'm not promising I'm going to do that.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Just take a step back real quick. You're talking about if you make some people upset about going on that dog hunt. The way I look at it, Roger, is here's the deal. If it's 100% legal, you're playing by the rules, you've got a license, it's your tag, you're paying for the hunt. I don't really care what they think anymore, to be honest with you. I used to worry about some of that stuff, and now I'm like, hey, it's legal. Let's just quit fighting amongst each other, and let's support each other. As long as it's legal, I don't have an issue with any of it.
After talking to that gentleman, and I'll tell you how it happened. I posted, and I just posted a picture, and it was someone from Alabama that had killed a deer on a dog hunt. And I put the picture up there on my page, and this guy private messaged me, and I'll tell you where I was at. I was hunting in Missouri at the time, and I called him that night. I remember I stepped outside to get away from everybody in the camp, called him, and he goes, I appreciate you putting that. I said, well, I said, it's just a picture of someone that had killed a deer. I said, it's not a pro or con deal. And he goes, I wish that you could come down here. If you could ever come down here, we would take you. He said, it's a different culture that surrounds dog hunting. People just don't understand what it really entails and what it means, and the tradition behind it. And right there on that spot, I said, I'll tell you what. I said, I can't this year. I said, but we'll schedule a thing next year, and I want to come down there, and we'll do that. And I'm actually really looking forward to it. So
that's awesome.
And that'll be the first, like I say, the first week in January. I'm not going to the archery trade show for the first time in over 30 years. I'm going to go to Alabama and go deer hunting instead.
Good for you.
Well, that sounds like more fun, right?
It is. Trust me. Yeah.
Well, Roger, it sure seems like whitetail is definitely your favorite animal to hunt, or right up there. And it sounds like you hit it hard. You put in a lot of time. These days, you're able to go to some really, really good quality spots. What are some other I don't want to say secrets, but tips that you would offer to people that are deer hunters? What's helped you be successful in deer hunting?
Well, I have always been pretty good at smelling out little area. It's so funny. There's some great opportunities for people, no matter where you live, that's just right up underneath your nose. I tell sportsmen this, and sometimes I get myself in hot water a little bit, but I said, if you can find some large chunks of, and these places are everywhere that are posted, that, it may be some kind of a corporate piece of land, or a state park, or whatever. Places there you absolutely cannot hunt deer on there. and if you can just get access to a small piece of property right up next to these properties where there's no hunting pressure, when the rut hits, these deer they don't know whose land they're on.
Mm-hmm.
When they go over a fence, they don't know what side of the fence is hunting pressure and what isn't. And I've always been a proponent of sniffing out little pockets and areas that. Favorite was, and I don't have time to tell this whole story, but I'm in southeast Kansas. Well, it was in the year 2000, so it's just hard for me to believe that's been 26 years ago. But it's been 26 years ago. But I was in Brown Chinook, Kansas, and back in those days, that's kind of the tail end of the video days. I was taken once a year and hunting with a fan, and I get invited by fans, all the time. And that year I went up to just south of Kansas City to spend some time with a guy in Paola, Kansas, just south of Kansas, to hunt his property. And I had a buddy of mine that his dad owned property down around Chinook, and I said, I said, look, I'll call you after the first day of hunt. So I called him, and he said, I stumbled into something that he said, I think it's kind of up your alley a little bit. And I said, I'll tell you what. I said, I'm going to hunt in the morning here. I said, and then I'll meet you at the Jack in the Box in Chinook, Kansas at 12 o'clock tomorrow. And we did, and we drove up north of Chinook about 7-8 miles, pretty open country, but to be honest with you. And one of his cousins had killed a mid 180-inch 10-point, but toad, a really nice buck. And I asked him, I said, you think we can get permission around here somewhere? You think you could find somebody? He goes, let me get on the phone. And he goes, I found somebody to give us. And we drove up the road about a mile or two, and there was 80 acres there, and there wasn't a tree. There wasn't a tree on it. It was just, been planted in something, and it had one little old row, and I'm talking about brush, just like head high stuff. And it looked like corn, soybean on one side and corn on the other, and it was just an open field with a pond in the very back. And I'm standing there looking at it, and he goes, "This is the only thing I could find." And I looked all around this, and the short version of this was that on every side of it, there was hundreds of acres, that was posted, no hunting, and this 80 acres sit right in the middle of nearly 3,000 acres that no one had hunted on in 8 years. And I said, you tell the landowner that we're going to hunt this 80 acres. And my buddy that I'm going to hunt with, he leaned over to me and said, are you sure? I said, well, yeah. And went back into Chinook, got me a motel room. We come back out there, and I just parked. I had Big Red, was a young truck back then, a brand new truck actually, my Excursion. I just parked it up next to the road. I mean, there wasn't no place else to park. And I told Steve, I said, you walk back to that pond, it looks like there's some shrubs and stuff around the base. Just kneel down there, and I'm going to go down this little old row of trees. It wasn't trees. It was just, I said, and right at dark, I'm going to get on the fence line and walk towards you. I said, let's just try that. And I'll never forget, I looked down at my watch. It was 20 minutes after 4 when I had one little old bush there, just big enough for me to lean up against. And I looked down at my watch. I daydreaming. Cars were going by. I'm wearing my Blaze Orange. I'm just right off the road. Cars down the gravel road, and I look back at my watch. It was 20 minutes to 5, and the light just started to fall. And I looked up, and this buck is standing out in front of me in this field, between me and the road. He never did see me. He was just moving to the right, and I could see 7 tines on one side. And it took me about 3 seconds. I lit that 300 mag, and he made it to the fence and tumbled. And by the time I got to the deer, Steve had run down. And he goes, "I heard you hit him. You know, he's a 165-inch buck. He field dressed 280 pounds." And I I thought, oh my gosh, I thought that, but that's how it works. You just take a chance sometimes on find a little old piece of property that's surrounded where there's no hunting pressure whatsoever. And when the rut's going on, you no telling what might happen.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's an extreme. Now that's extreme case. We could have, I could have sat there for a week and not seen a deer, but it took me 20 minutes that time to kill a 165-inch buck. So I'm not the world's greatest deer hunter, but I'm willing to take a chance and look for these little low spots where the deer have got a chance to get a little bit of age on them, where they aren't being pushed around by other hunters, and it can mean some success for you.
Now you did. You hinted earlier, that you've got some things kind of planned, or some things you're thinking about doing here in the next few years. Is there anything you can give us a little teaser about or share about what's coming for Roger Raglin in the future?
Well, I'm going to go back down to this last year. This was I had a buddy of mine that had he was in charge of Rancho Cuevas in Mexico for 14 years. Now that's considered the greatest whitetail ranch in all Mexico. We had a chance to go hunt that 7 years in a row, and it was, if you talk about heaven on earth, trust me, it was a 10,000 acre piece of property that was pretty special. And when we did some children's hunts, disabled children's, and we did some wounded veteran hunts there too. But Mark gave that ranch up because he got an elk ranch now in West Texas, way out in West Texas, by like Marfa, Alpine, out in the Big Bend country type stuff. And Mark's not going to let me come out there and shoot an elk, all right? But it's got a bunch of aoudad on it, and I had never shot an aoudad before. And I called Mark it was on a Thursday. I called Mark, what are you doing? He goes, I'm headed to the ranch in West Texas. He goes, I got a client that I'm going to let him shoot one of my elk. Oh, okay. This is all free range stuff. I said, oh, okay. He goes, you ought to come down, you and Josh. He goes, it won't take us one day to kill an elk. He goes, and I'll stay over a few days and we'll hunt aoudad. And just that quick, I thought, well, we'll see you. We'll see you there by noon on Saturday. And we went down tonight in Fort Stockton and drove on down, and we did. That's going to be when I have a bunch of my television shows start to air first week in July. And the first two shows are our aoudad hunt from last year. I didn't realize what a magnificent animal the aoudad really is. Big, 250, 300 pound animal. And buddy, let me tell you, I thought I bit off a little bit more than I could chew on that one. Now that was a hunt, man alive. I wasn't physically ready for that hunt, but it was a great experience. And I've been invited to another ranch down there, and we're going to kick off our Texas hunts this year on hunting mule deer and aoudad. They have elk too. I don't know if they'll let shoot an elk, but that's going to be. I think that's going to be a real neat experience. I'm excited for people to see our aoudad hunt when it shows there, because that was a real hunt. And we worked our tails off to shoot those aoudad. And I'm going for this fall. I'm going back to another little ranch that I hunted down by Junction. This is a low fence, a free range deal down by Junction, and that was a lot of fun. We're gonna do that hunt again. Of course, I'm going to go back down to the Freeholey with Mims. We're going to do that hunt again. I'm going to be back up in northern Missouri with Ryan Kirkpatrick for our 14th year in a row up there hunting with Ryan, about 3 miles from the Iowa border. And then I put in for Wyoming. I should draw. We're going to go up to Buffalo, Wyoming, and do an antelope and a whitetail hunt up there, up not far from the Montana border. And I haven't done a western hunt in a number of years. I used to go out there a lot, but I got, we've got some news, and something else may pop up along the way. We'll see how the season unfolds.
Yeah.
But and Illinois. I'm going to hunt Pike County, Illinois again. I haven't done that in a number of years. Minnesota. I'm going to be up in north central Minnesota. Going to go deer hunt up in Minnesota this year. So I used to spend a lot of time in Wisconsin. Back in the mid 90s and late 90s, I went to Wisconsin sometimes twice a year.
Really?
I did. I shot a huge buck up north of Rhinelander one year, believe it or not. And I'll tell you a little bit of here's a little bit of trivia that maybe you don't know. Living in Wisconsin, you might not know this. I'm getting gas. We're getting ready to go back out into the field, and I'm getting gas there in Rhinelander. And the guy said, "You a football fan?" I said, "Well, yeah, sure." College football? I said, "Yeah, I'm a college football fan." "You ever heard of the Heisman Trophy?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "That was named after John Heisman." I said, "Yeah, I'm buried right here. There's a cemetery right behind the." He goes, "He's buried in the row right over here." And we went over and found his grave. John Heisman, who the Heisman Trophy is named after, is buried in a cemetery in Rhinelander, Wisconsin.
Wow.
That I did not know
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, how would anybody know that? And I have no idea how he ended up in the cemetery in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, but he's sure there. It's on his tombstone.
Here, I thought you were going to say something that you ran into a hodag up there.
What?
A hodag.
They told you about the hodags in Rhinelander.
I don't know. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, there's some mythical, creature that's from in Rhinelander. So there's like statues, and it's like a mascot, and there's probably statues, sculptures.
Yeah, they have a festival.
There's a festival, Hodag Fest. Yeah. But yeah, so now you can go look that up, Roger. But I did not know that about the Heisman Trophy namesake. No.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that you want to share with listeners today, Roger, that you haven't already touched on?
Well, no, not really. Just my new shows are going to be on the Sportsman's Channel starting first week in July, and I still have my Roger Raglin channel that has all the weight loss stuff. That's still available for those who are interested in maybe trying to get changed around a little bit but drop weight. That's still available. Of course, our website, rogerraglin.com, we brought back the BKS production, the original BKS production from the VHS days. They haven't been available in nearly 30 years. Those are now available. We brought them back. So we sold a bunch of those. I had like 4 or 5 dozen at the Harrisburg show, and they were gone in a hurry.
I bet. And you're on all the social media channels. We kind of talked about that earlier, so people can find you there too.
Yeah, you can find me. Yeah, my Facebook's Roger Raglin on Target, and then Instagram's just Roger Raglin. And if you punch in Roger Raglin something, you'll eventually find me.
Awesome. Well, we sure appreciate you being on with us today. I enjoyed it.
No, thank you. Thank you for letting me into your ear. I hope I didn't blow and go too much.
No, it's very interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Not at all. Well, I think, as Roger said, I think, get out there and get after it and eke every little bit that you can out of all your hunting experiences. And in the words of Roger via Tom Miranda, because when you're dead for a long time. Get out there and own the season.
Follow Own the Season Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for listening.
Check back weekly for new episodes.